Hey guys, welcome to another lab video with Zach and Gabe. This week we're going to be on the 2006 Corolla once more. We're going to be looking at oxygen sensors and air fuel sensors. So here I have the sensor location schematic up for this Corolla, and you can see A21 right there. That is our air fuel ratio sensor, bank 1 sensor 1. And if you look up here at A21, that is pointing to the connector on the wiring harness that connects to the connector on the end of the pigtail for that air fuel ratio sensor. And you can see our second sensor here on this diagram, heated oxygen sensor, sensor 2 for bank 1, and that is going to be on the tailpipe underneath the center of the vehicle. And here I have the powertrain management schematic. You can see our air fuel ratio sensor, bank 1 sensor 1. That is the first sensor that I showed you on the previous clip, and that would be on the exhaust manifold behind the engine. And here is our other bank 1 sensor 2 sensor, and that is on the tailpipe underneath the center of the vehicle. So actually looking at where these sensors are on this Corolla, you can see that first connector on that first diagram, that is right here, and this leads down to the pigtail for this air fuel ratio sensor on the back of the exhaust manifold. And under the vehicle here, you can see this bank 1 sensor 2 sensor more downstream from the engine on the tailpipe. So here I have the scan tool hooked up, and you can see the air fuel sensor, bank 1 sensor 1. Right there. We have a 3.29 volts reading at idle. And for O2 sensor, bank 1 sensor 2, the sensor that I showed you under the vehicle, we have 0.37 volts at idle. So here you can see I've unplugged the pigtail for the O2 sensor, so the ECM is no longer getting a signal from that sensor. And on the scan tool you can see the default for an unplugged O2 or air fuel sensor is 3.3 volts, and you can see it leveled out right there when I unplugged it. So we're sitting at 3.3 volts there.
So here you can see our short and long fuel trims, and then both of our sensors, and then Gabe's gonna make a miss. See how they change. Plug it back in.
Wait, so you can see our air fuel sensor and our O2 sensor, what they're at idle. So we're at 3.33 on our air fuel sensor, and we're at 0.78 volts on our downstream fuel sensor, oxygen sensor. So when Zach unplugs and makes a vacuum leak, we'll see how these PIDs respond. You can see it jumps right up to 5 volts on the air fuel sensor and goes down to 0.035 on the other O2 sensor. And the vehicle does not like it. So here we're on the Suzuki Grand Vitara, and we have the propane hooked up. So we're looking at the O2 sensor readings here. And you can see the upstream sensor readings aren't changing at all, so that makes us think that there's something that may be wrong with them. But in a second here, Zach is going to add some propane, and you can see how the sensor 2s react to the propane. You can see there's a little blip in each of the sensor 2 readings, and it went rich for a second. So here I have the resistance spec pulled up for the air fuel sensor, and you can see from pins 1 to 2, you'll have 1.8 to 3.4 ohms, and I have it pinned into that connector there for the air fuel sensor, and we have 2.9 ohms, so that is within spec. For the other resistance measurement, you plug into pin 1 and pin 4 of this connector, and you can see the value should be 10 kiloohms or higher. And with our testing, you can see we're plugged into pin 1 and pin 4 across diagonally like that. And you can see our resistance measurement is out of limits, so that is out of spec.